History remembers conquerors for their battles, but sometimes it's the cup, not the sword, that ends an empire. Few men have loomed as large as Alexander the Great. He carved an empire from Greece to India, crowned himself Pharaoh of Egypt, and never lost a battle. But at just 32 years old, at the height of his power, he collapsed and died in Babylon. Was it fever? Was it grief? Or was the world's greatest general undone by a plant in his wine glass? This is the story of Alexander the Great and the Hellebore. Welcome to Pete's world of poisonous plants, where legends fall, thrones topple, and even the most powerful men in history can be brought low by roots and berries. In this third episode, we step back to the ancient world, to a time of gods, armies, and one man who thought himself invincible. Let's begin with the plant, Hellebore. A lovely flower, often blooming in winter, sometimes called the Christmas rose or the Lenten rose. But don't be fooled by its beauty. Its roots contain glycosides and alkaloids that hit the heart, the stomach, and the nervous system. In small doses, Hellebore acts as a violent purgative. It makes you vomit and purge in spectacular fashion. Ancient doctors even prescribed it as a cure for madness, though whether it cured patients or simply left them too exhausted to complain is another matter. In larger doses, Hellebore causes abdominal pain, seizures, slowed heartbeat, and death. A deceptively perfect poison to slip into a cup of wine. Now to Alexander. He had marched from Greece through Persia, toppling empires one after the other. By 323 BCE, he was at Babylon, plotting a campaign into Arabia. But something was wrong. Ancient accounts tell us he attended a banquet, drank heavily, as Macedonian kings often did, and within hours was stricken with agony. For 12 days he lay in torment, unable to speak, unable to move, until death finally claimed him. His body, they say, showed no sign of decay for days afterward, a fact that only deepened the whispers of poison. Theories abound. Some say malaria or typhoid fever. Others claim grief and exhaustion finally broke him. But one theory points squarely to Hellebore. Slip enough root extract into strong wine and it would taste bitter, but wine masks many sins. The effects would come on quickly. Violent abdominal pain, endless vomiting, sweating, paralysis, and finally organ failure. A fittingly cruel end for a man who believed himself divine. And there were plenty who wanted him gone. His generals squabbled endlessly for power. His men were weary of endless marching east. The conquered Persians seethed under his rule. Even within his court, Alexander's appetite for wine and ambition had made him enemies. Poison was cheaper than war, and quieter than rebellion. One banquet, one cup, one root slipped into the king's drink, and an empire trembled. Now imagine the scene. Alexander, flushed from wine, suddenly clutching his stomach. His generals watch in silence as their king retches, his body racked with spasms. His voice weakens to a whisper, his legendary strength ebbs away. The man who faced elephants in India, who crossed deserts and mountains, lies helpless on his bed, conquered at last by a flower. Hellebore had already made its mark on Greek history. Centuries earlier, during the First Sacred War, the city of Kira was besieged. The attackers poisoned the city's water supply with Hellebore root. The defenders drank, and soon the city was overcome with vomiting and diarrhea. A whole army undone by purgative poison. To the Greeks, Hellebore was not just medicine, it was a weapon. It is little wonder that when Alexander fell, whispers turned to the plant. Modern toxicologists agree it's plausible. The symptoms match. A prolonged, agonizing illness, stretching over days, not hours. The violent purging, the paralysis, the slow collapse. It would not have been a quick death. It would have been a living nightmare. And for those who hoped to divide his empire, it gave them time. Time to scheme, time to prepare, time to imagine a world without Alexander. And what a world it became. With Alexander gone, his generals carved up the empire, founding dynasties that would last centuries. Ptolemy in Egypt, Seleucus in the east, Antigonus in Macedon. The great empire shattered almost overnight. One poisoned cup had done what no army could. It ended Alexander's conquest and changed history forever. Hellebore, of course, never went away. It still grows in gardens today, admired for its winter flowers. Few gardeners know that its roots hold the same toxins that may have killed a god-king. Ancient doctors prescribed it to purge melancholy, to cure insanity, even to sharpen the mind. In truth, it left patients trembling, dehydrated, and often dead. Not much of a cure. So the next time you see a hellebore blooming in the frost, think of Alexander the Great. Not astride his horse Bucephalus, not charging at the head of his army, but lying in agony, betrayed by his own cup. A conqueror felled not by sword, not by arrow, not by spear, but by a root steeped in wine. And that, dear listener, is the bitter truth. Empires rise on steel and blood, but they fall on poison. Alexander believed himself untouchable, yet in the end even he was not beyond the reach of a flower. Even the greatest can be brought low by the smallest sip.